Welcome to the Your Most Interesting Story podcast. My name's Rob, and each episode I intend to serve you up a big old piece of real-life pie as we hear about and dig into the most interesting thing that's happened to someone in their life. These are first-hand, true stories told by everyday people. In this episode, a self-proclaimed goody-goody goes bad for a brief moment, leading to this humorous tale of how a nearly perfect summer turned into a night from hell. Please enjoy Doug's most interesting story.
Well, my most interesting story just happens to be a story of irony as well, because growing up in a very tiny town and everyone knows everything that you're doing all the time, having a father who was my principal.
Was he your grade school principal?
Yes. I was a complete rule follower, goody-goody. I'm laughing about it now because tragedy plus 3 decades, makes it much more interesting and fun for me. But it was so traumatic because I prided myself on a rule follower. I still am to this day. I stop at stop signs, drives my wife crazy many times. It's some of the things I do. I remember going into Target one time when I was about 9 or 10 years old. And this is when Target was kind of a poor man's Kmart. And I found a sweatband, like a wristband you'd wear for sports, lying on one of the aisles. And I decided I would take it home because it was just lying there on the floor.
So do you think some athletic sweaty guy dropped it while you were shopping?
It could have been Bjorn Borg shopping there, but I'm guessing it fell out of the packaging or something. I just spent the next 4 or 5 weeks feeling guilty about that until the next time we went back to Target. I took that old crappy wristband and decided to put it back in the exact same spot where I found it in the first place. Probably wasn't fresh when I got it, but I still felt that hanging over my head for the longest time.
You had a nicely formed conscience at an early age.
I wasn't even Catholic or anything. I think that's small town Midwest. I'm in summer school between my junior and senior years of college, and all my roommates and I are taking summer school because we thought, hey, it could be a fun summer. We go to class in the mornings. We go to the outdoor pool at the student recreational facility in the afternoon. Then each evening we go to happy hour because no students are on campus, so all the bars are trying to get everyone in with free food. So we split a pitcher of beer, probably a Schlitz or a Blatz or Little Kings or something like that. And then we all eat free. So coming to the end of the summer and my last weekend there, I met a girl and we had a great weekend. So I left on a high note. It really was kind of the perfect summer, but it's time to go back home and work for a couple weeks. Going back home with a roommate of mine who was from the same town as me, and his mom worked at an RV factory, which was the big industry in the area, and we went to Notre Dame
University, right?
Yes. To put on an RV show in the parking lot of the stadium. Basically, all the RV distributors come there, and our jobs are essentially to pound AstroTurf into the asphalt to make it nice and pretty and look like there's actually a yard around these giant motorhomes. And then our other job is to act as, I'm using my air quotes here, a night watchman, where essentially we go into the RVs at night and sleep, and then the real security guards at the show come and wake us up about 7 a.m. before anyone else shows up.
So I assume you went through rigorous night watchman training in case there was any trouble on the artificial turf overnight?
We were absolutely unprepared for anything. It was more or less camping for us and getting paid for it. So that was pretty sweet. We essentially got double overtime for the whole time we were there, which was enough money. So when we came back to campus, we were flush with cash. The first night we go back to campus, it's Thursday night, I believe. We have 5 bars within 1 block of the rented house that we share together as roommates. So we go out drinking and proceeded to get inebriated pretty quickly. After some of our roommates had already left and gone home, my friend and I, who had worked with on the RV show, are walking, and right across the street from our house is this vacant lot that's used for a plant sale. Every year when students are coming back, they have it all filled with plants. So we thought, hey, let's grab a couple plants for the house and run. We just had to make it across the street back behind our house and we were home safe. So I proceeded to do just that. I grabbed the first plant I could find and I took off. I make it around to the back of the house and I'm sitting there going, okay, where's Wags? He's nowhere to be found. So I'm like, don't really know what to do. And then all of a sudden I hear this yelling coming from the front of the house, which would be across the street. And it's seemingly the night watchman, who we thought was asleep, has suddenly awakened and grabbed him. I hear him screaming, "Where is he? Tell me where he is."
Stolen plant in hand, Doug's buzzed mind is whirling. Why didn't Wags, his plant pilfering pal, grab his own plant and follow him as planned? And what was he going to do now? Things had gotten substantially more complex, and Doug's temporarily compromised conscience is beginning to shake off the cobwebs of alcohol.
So my first instinct is to rouse my other roommates out there and go save him. Big rescue mission because we're all super tough guys. We are entirely not.
Was the concept here that you were going to use brute force?
I was probably just going in there with reinforcements, so it wasn't just me involved. That's the main thing. So I wasn't going to get my butt kicked on my own.
Were you feeling any remorse for betraying one of your night watchman brethren?
I didn't even think about that at the time, but we could have talked to him like night watchman, security guard to security guard and really worked something out. But that didn't happen. So I'm trying to rouse my roommates. They are not getting up. So I figured, okay, I'm just going to go out there and do it myself. And I take about 2 steps off the front porch and I hear the sirens and see the police lights flashing. So I'm starting to sober up really fast at this point. And I decide that I'm going to take care of everything. I'm fessing up. I walk up to one of the cops. Hey, I can clear this up. I'll rectify all this. And then was immediately grabbed and handcuffed and pummeled into the police car, tossed into the back seat where my roommate was sitting watching me. And my first words to him were, I came back for you. Top Gun came out the previous summer and I wasn't leaving my wingman. And he just looks at me and goes, yeah, you're an idiot.
I'm going to bet that's not the kind of response you were hoping to get.
Yeah, but history has proved him true.
Now, did he have a plant as well?
No, all he had was a black eye because the guy actually punched him. In retrospect, he probably could have had a major lawsuit against them because he just kept walking and did absolutely nothing, where I was the one who did it. I tell the cop, hey, I just want to take care of this. I admit it. I can give back the plant, make restitution, all this stuff. So the cop gets me out of the car and we start walking up to the house, at which point I realize my hands are cuffed. The front door is locked. We can't get in. The cop has to reach into my pocket and get the keys out, which probably was one of the most awkward moments for both him and me. And as soon as we get in the door, we've got a dog and this dog is going crazy. Eventually, we grabbed the plant and went back to the car. And I don't know what they did with the plant. Maybe they just handed it back to the night watchman and we took off for the jail.
That's a bit of a 180 considering the situation you were in about an hour earlier.
Walking on sunshine to heading off to the slammer, right? So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm extremely anxious and nervous and very distraught at this time too, because I'm just thinking I got to get a job at 9 months and I'm going to have a police record. So they take us down to the station and they gave me a report to fill out and I start writing on it. I'm a writing major, so I can write, right? And I'm going to town and when the cop's standing there, he looks at me and goes, are you going to be done soon? And I ask him for another piece of paper. He's like, no, nobody's going to read it. You're done here. Halfway through my confession, that was that. I guess I hadn't watched enough Dragnet or Magnum PI or Hill Street Blues to realize the value of actually remaining silent. I was like a fountain of information. One thing that was fascinating that was different than the cop shows is when you're getting fingerprinted, I was just trying to press it down and he's like, no, you got to roll it. That was something that I got to learn how to roll my fingers properly for fingerprinting.
Once they had completed the processing, Doug was escorted over to where the actual jail cells were.
Once we're in the jailhouse, I remember I'd get a phone call to make. trying to call my house. Nobody's up. No one's answering. So I give up on that. And the cop lets me keep making more calls. He was a really nice guy. Finally, the person I reached, she was a friend, a graduate student who's probably like 10 to 15 years older than us. Thank God for Angela. She was an angel, a true saint, because I wanted her to get my medicine because I was taking like some kind of pill for anxiety or whatever every day. So she was going to get it and come down to the station and drop it off. And I remember getting that pill and going to take it. And of course, I drop it right into the nasty toilet. And that was that. I didn't know what to expect, but I have to say I was relieved when I found out the 6 or 8 guys who were in this big open cell area were there for like theft or violating restraining orders, as opposed to large capital crimes and murders or beating up drunk college students. I do recall that I was wearing Madras plaid shorts and a t-shirt that said Moscow University. So I didn't exactly blend in with the crowd that was in there, which was several years older and much rougher around the edges than I was.
So what time did you end up locked in the cell?
I'm guessing it was probably sometime between midnight and 1 o'clock. And I do know that when they served breakfast, it was around like 4 in the morning. I don't know how that was breakfast for everyone. It was just like all the people in there were like mole people who just were operating in like a whole different time zone than I was. I was not a food aficionado. I could eat all kinds of stuff. I wasn't scared off by things that were creamed on toast. But this food that they had there was the nastiest thing.
Did you eat it?
No, I absolutely did not, especially since my stomach was doing somersaults and I didn't have my special magical pill that I had dropped into the toilet. I wanted to read something, but the only books in there were all these Louis L'Amour Western paperback novels, which almost made me laugh. Even I was distraught at the time because my 8th grade English teacher, the only books she had in the classroom were these Louis L'Amour Westerns. And I was just way too intellectually charged to read one of those Westerns, no matter how desperate I was to read. I actually won a game of chess. There's one young kid who was younger than me probably, who wanted to play, and I hadn't played chess since like 8th grade. Decided to kill a little time doing that.
I got to assume you were keeping a low profile.
I was trying to link into the woodwork as much as possible for the lack of woodwork that was actually in there. Now, having seen prison shows since then, I know that I needed to like go up to the toughest guy and show him who was boss. So, just like no one would mess with me. But I think my approach actually worked out pretty well. My roommate, I think he must have been in the drunk tank because that was a whole different section. So we didn't really see each other in all this time. Now we're coming around to morning time. And guess what? They're going to release us on our own recognizance. Like, I didn't know all this stuff going in. Like, I thought I was going to be there for a month or something. It's like, again, this is just a clueless guy who had not gotten into trouble, right? So we decided we're just going to walk home. It's a sunny August Friday morning, and it's like probably a 1.5 mile walk back to our house. As we're going across the Wabash River on the bridge, this little yellow VW Rabbit pulls up with our friend Carl in it. He's just laughing and like, "You want to ride?" I think we both simultaneously just flipped him off and just kept walking. He'd been one that passed out on us the night before.
So he must have been aware of the situation.
He was aware of the situation. I think when my graduate student friend Angela had showed up at the house to get the pills, Carl was there and she must have alerted him to the fact that we were in jail because in the morning, our other roommate woke up and there was a handwritten note in pencil and it said, "Wags and Jason the Slammer." And that's all it said. And to this day, he has that framed in his home office, that little piece of paper, scrap paper with that on it. So it's kind of become a nice memento and a recurring story for all of us. The girl I mentioned earlier in the story about, we just kind of hit it off, had this great weekend before we had gotten home. She came up to our house looking to see me because we were going to meet up. So she got back into town. And my roommate who had the note has to inform her that, no, Doug is now in jail. And the irony to that is her dad, his business was selling equipment to the Indiana State Police and local police departments, right? So I'm sure that went over well that way too. Eventually we made it home, and that was the end of the fun evening, other than the fact of me worrying about whether I would have a record, whether I have to get a lawyer, and all those fun things.
So they released you on your own recognizance, but did you get any kind of a notice afterwards?
Well, funny you should ask. I did get a notice in the mail. Fortunately, one of my roommates' dads was a lawyer in town, and he had a colleague, and he said, this guy can help you out. And I basically had to come up with $250. Thank God I had just gotten paid from our big RV shows. I at least had $250 to my name, and I paid for this lawyer and met with him and explained how I was an honor student and all this stuff, right? And I never get in trouble and blah, 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 blah. Theoretically, he's like, it shouldn't be a problem. I should be able to get thrown out. Fast forward about 6 months, and I got a job offer to go out to California, and I'm getting ready to leave the state. And I hadn't known for sure at that point whether it was officially expunged. I thought it was, but I never got like official notice. He told me he would let me know if there was an issue. But then I took off, moved away to California, but every time I came back to Indiana, I did not want to drive because I just had this in the back of my head. There's this outstanding warrant for my arrest, and I'm going to be riding with my mom in the car or something like that, and I'm going to get busted. But to this day, I walk a free man.
Do you remember when you told your parents?
Oh, I haven't. So they're in their mid to late 80s now, and I guess I could give them this podcast. My mom's very handy with an Apple phone, but I might just bypass that. The price of the plant that I stole is a yucca palm. It was $1.99 because I went back and checked the next week. So basically all this happened over a $1.99 plant. So
Was it a decent sized plant at least?
it was probably about 5 inches tall, and it was exotic plant though, because we didn't have a lot of palms in the Midwest. Although I don't think I look. I think I just grabbed the first thing I saw.
Okay, one more thing. You went to Purdue, right?
Yes.
So Purdue Boilermakers, who's that little mascot guy running around?
Oh, he's not little. Purdue Pete, he's got like the huge head and the steroid body, carrying around this giant sledgehammer.
Oh, well, that sounds normal.
When they do the contest, creepiest mascots, he's always up there in like the top 5.
So does that mean he's holding a shot and a beer in the hand that's not holding the sledgehammer? Because I'm still trying to understand this Boilermaker thing.
Supposedly, when Purdue started a football team back in like the 1870s, 1880s, whenever it was, they were just pulling off all the huge guys who worked on the boilers on the trains, which were the big dudes. And so that's how they got the name the Boilermakers.
The mascot's name should be the Purdue.
Okay, that wraps up episode 4. Thanks for sticking around until the end. You can check out the YMIS Podcast Instagram account for show-related pics. Your Most Interesting Story is available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. If you'd like to support the show, you can like, rate, review, share, and or subscribe. Or you can visit our website where you can also let us know that you'd like to tell us your most interesting story. Just follow the link in the show description. Our email address is ymIspodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, be interesting.
I had a friend of a friend who was actually arrested for harassing a police officer. There was a canine in the back of the police car. He was right up against the glass making faces and barking and yelling at him.
That officer would have been the dog.
The officer was the canine, yes.